Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. It is Monday, March 27th, 2022. Welcome to 7 Soul Strengthening Pillars to Building Your Dream Life as an Artist. I am here with number 3, the number of perfection, the number of resurrection, and I've got so much to share tonight. Hope you're ready for this because I sure am. I've been missing you guys. It's been a whole month and I am starting to realize this year that I am just coming to you once a month because of where I'm at, but that's okay. So those of you that have been following me, the last 2, we started with the mind, which was number 1. For our thinkers out there, deep thinkers, you know who you are. And number 2 was the heart, for all the feelers. So number 3, we're going to talk about the soul, which is basically the mind, the heart, and the will. So I hope you are ready for this. You are going to want to take notes because I've written down so much. So let's begin. What is our soul? Those of you that know with G's Restored, I talk about the soul all the time. It is part of the central nervous system of self. In fact, it is the core part of self. It is where we have our mind, our heart, and our will. So tonight, I'm going to get into the depths of all of this. The soul is the place of transformation and growth. It is a place where we process pain and brokenness. And it is a place where we unlearn and relearn the basics and the depths of how we live our life. And it all happens in this interconnection of thoughts, emotions, and decisions. That is to say, the mind, the heart, and the will, and their beautiful, intricately woven, God-ordained connection. So, I've shared before that our mind is and has a super strength to basically guide the rest of self. I shared in detail about this on the mind video. For those of you who are interested, I have it uploaded on YouTube and partially on Instagram. I've also shared on our heart and its superpower to guide the rest of self. And the condition of these 2 leads us to action, which is where the will takes over and makes decisions for us. So their health is vital, okay? And all of this makes up our life, both just as human beings, but also as artists. So it's important that we are in tune with our soul and its health. So let's get into this. Where should I begin, actually? Because I really do have so much to share. Okay, as artists, we are naturally in tune with our soul because we know its lament and we know its joy, and we draw from each well to create our works and our masterpieces. So this is sort of a natural rhythm that we have already as artists. What I'm going to teach you tonight is bringing your full self and its authenticity to express fully and truly. I'm going to teach you how to be comfortable with yourself in any and every area that your soul is in at all times. A lot of times we want to show our best self when we create something, but I want to encourage you, as I have before, that allowing that recovery and broken self to be part of this process of creating is equally important and certainly the most authentic. Okay? Let's start with writing this down, because I think this is important to remember. And that is that we are all struggling with something at all times. So essentially, all of us are in some kind of recovery. And it is all at once and all at the same time. And I'm going to get into this a little bit more as I go along. But this is important to remember because it really is life. And also, depending on where you are and how you have learned as an artist and what you're receiving as far as your thoughts on what it means to be an accomplished artist. Those of you who have been with me for a little bit, you know that success is not about fame. It's not about how much you make. It's not about how many people like you or follow you. Success has everything to do with the mastery of self and being true to that regardless of how famous you are or how much money you make as an artist. I know that because the industry, and it really doesn't matter which one, has taught us that in order for you to be accomplished, you have to get your name out there, or you have to, whatever they say. But that's not the truth, and that's not reality. So this sort of ties into this because when you come to this place where you just embrace where you're at in all parts of your journey to becoming and building that dream life as an artist, this is freedom. I mean, this is going to liberate you if you are somebody who struggled with that idea and mindset that I am not an accomplished artist unless XYZ, because of what the industry teaches us. And I know everybody's in a different area in this because of how long you've been in your field or where you are just in general in your journey as an artist. Okay, so let's go back to this very important thing to remember, and that is, as I mentioned, we are all struggling with something at all times. Some of our struggles are more obvious, quote unquote, than others. Some of our struggles are physical, some of them are emotional, some of them are mental, and some of them are spiritual, but we all have something that we battle and wrestle with. And all of this has a root cause and a remedy. So right now, as we're getting into this, because this is going to help you kind of bring this all together for yourself personally, which is what I'm hoping for you. And I'd like to ask you to take a couple of minutes and write down 3 areas that you struggle with. 3. Because 3 is the number of this session, and it is a wonderful number. 3 areas that you struggle with. And for the rest of this session, I want you to meditate on this, because these 3 areas will be the areas that you're going to refer to as I'm teaching. So you can apply these truths and begin to get in touch with your soul and its present condition, as well as moving forward. Okay. So, as you're writing this down, let me also introduce this to you, and that is 3 main stages of life that we are simultaneously going through at all times. And the reason is because there are some areas that we're really leveling up and growing, and then there's some areas that we are still hurting in, and then there's some areas that we're in recovery and healing. And those are the 3. The first is brokenness. As I said before, we're all struggling. So we all have areas of brokenness at all times because we are works in progress. These, I would say, are areas that are unhealed. They're areas that are wounded, whether it's because it's buried and it hasn't been dealt with, or it's fresh and it's live. Okay, that's number 1. The second one is recovery and healing. That is to say, these are areas in our life that we have shined the light on and recognized, I'm hurting in this area and I need help. And I am learning how to get better. This is recovery. The third one is wholeness. And that is ultimately where we're going and what we're after. So this is an area that you have learned in your recovery how to get better. You have learned how to master certain things that have been plaguing you, that have been hurting you for however long. Okay? With that said, we need to remember this, that we are works in progress. Not only works in progress, but we are master works in progress. Many of you know I say this a lot, but you are unique. You are unique. God created you so specific and unique according to his plan and purpose, according to what you're here to do, according to the calling that's on your life, according to the passions and desires that you innately carry and want to live out. Okay? So it's important to remember at the same time, I'm a work in progress because I will never get anything right because I'm flawed. And yet at the same time, you're his craftsmanship. You are, in his eyes, you know, he sees the finished work in you. So you are a master work in progress. So this is that harmony of understanding my brokenness and my wholeness at the same time. Okay? The beginning to this journey is to understand this important key, which I believe is the key to unlocking, number 1, our true authentic self, and number 2, the dream life that we want for ourselves, which I believe, and you guys know this, it is possible. And again, I sit here, this is so funny because I feel like every time I teach or I want to teach something, I am literally going through it. And as I'm encouraging you, I'm also encouraging myself. Okay? Living out your dream life as an artist is work. It's dedication, it's commitment. But again, as I've taught before, it starts with your vision. Like, I know where I'm going. Because you need to know that in order to get going. Okay, so what is this key that I'm talking about? This is self-mastery. You can't master self without knowing self. You can't master self without being real and honest with self. And you can't master self without knowing how self is and functions, okay? So I'm getting to this very basic and fundamental truth about who we are in the inner being, and that is the soul. This is what we're talking about. Knowing how the soul works and functions naturally and innately helps us to get to know our own soul, and it helps us to understand how to navigate through those issues and troubles that we have, which in turn helps us to be authentic and real in our artistry, which in turn helps us to produce our best work, which in turn helps others who receive it, who resonate with it, and who are blessed by it. So this is a domino effect of the human existence. Okay. Okay, so self-mastery is the key to unlocking your true, authentic, and dreamy life. It takes time, but it is the door to no longer being a victim of your own life story. Again, we all suffer. We all are going through something, but learning how to accept it. I'm going back to She's Restored teaching. Accept. Okay, that's the first step, is to accept I'm broken, I'm hurt, I'm going through something. Accept, acknowledge it. Actually, that's the first one. Acknowledge that I am here. Secondly, accept and embrace it, because you can't release something you don't possess, and you have to accept and embrace that part of self in order to heal from it, which is part of releasing it. So accepting and embracing it. And then lastly is going through the process of number 2, which is recovery. Okay? And as I said before, we're talking about the basics here, but it's also connecting to our life as an artist, because our life as an artist is inevitably an extension of our life in general. So what we produce in our art is a reflection of what is being produced in our life. Okay? What are we thinking? What are we feeling? And inevitably, what decisions are we making because of those two interconnections? That is the art that we make. Okay? So as I shared before in the other 2 videos, there is a divine order to how the soul functions. What is the soul? It's the mind, the heart, and the will. It's thoughts, emotions, decisions. And these, as I've shared before, I think I shared it in the first video, maybe the second one, and maybe both. But these are constantly going, okay? So how I think affects how I feel affects my choices, which affects how I feel, affects my emotional realm, and affects my decision making, which inevitably makes up my life. Our life is the sum of our decisions. So if you're making really bad decisions, you gotta go backwards. Okay, I'm making these decisions based on how I feel. What's going on here? Why do I feel this way? I need to go backwards to what am I thinking that's causing me to feel this way, that's causing me to act this way, and make these decisions. So this is a constant circle of the soul's process. Okay. Let's see. Right here, I'm going to go ahead and remind us that if you're a thinker, and by the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you'll need to watch the first video. So, first video is number 1, and these are 7 soul strengthening pillars to building your life as an artist. We are on number 3. So, number 1 is the mind. Those of us who are thinkers, I shared in that video that we create cerebrally. In other words, it's when I'm creating as a thinker, I'm creating primarily from my thought life and my mind. Okay? That's not to say that you don't have feelings that you don't feel. Of course you do. But this is your natural rhythm when you're creating whatever it is, whatever artistry you're doing. Others of us are feelers. Okay? That's video number 2. That is the heart. Okay? So feelers, we create, I'm a feeler, we create from the emotional realm. That is our natural rhythm. When I am making art, whether it's choreography, whether it's music, whether it's writing, whatever it is, film, whatever it is, it's how I feel. And that's my natural realm that I flow from as an artist. That's my natural creative flow. Some of us are thinkers, some of us are feelers, some of us vacillate between the two. Okay? So I want us to remember, okay? And like I said, if you're not sure, then think about it or feel about it. Remember that our ideas our creativity flow from these two, okay? Now, based on this is so important. You need to highlight this in your mind, highlight this in your heart, because when I wrote it down, I was like, okay, this is powerful. And it is this. Whichever you tend to most associate with or camp in, again, your natural rhythm, is the area of your inner battle. Okay? Please get this. This is so important. This is so important. And it's probably resonating anyway right now. Okay? In other words, I'm a feeler. I tend to, when I'm making decisions, when I'm processing things, when I'm creating whatever it is, this area of emotions is where I live. Okay? So my battles, my struggles tend to be in this area. Those of us who are thinkers, same thing. And those of us who vacillate between the two, good luck for us, right? Because it's both. So, with this said, if you are a thinker, you must learn how to master your thought life. If you're a feeler, you must learn how to master your emotional life, because these are the areas that we're going to struggle with, and these are the areas that we're going to wrestle with life's issues. Okay? There's actually a verse in the Bible that says, out of the heart flow the issues of life, which is profound because, again, thoughts influence emotions, which influence decisions. So just by design, the emotional realm is sort of the turning point of decision. Where am I going to go? Okay, because it flows into our decisions. And yet, at the same time, because it's in the center, it's postured to look back to, what am I thinking causing me to feel this way before I make a decision? Okay, so this, however, doesn't negate the natural order, okay, of how it flows. Thoughts, emotions, decisions, the sum of life. Okay, so as an artist, I'm going to give us some a few things to think about for both thinkers and feelers, okay? As an artist, I must remember to come back to these 3 points, which are, or I should say, the main stages. Number 1, brokenness. When I'm creating, I am, and I can subconsciously be drawing from my brokenness, whether it's present or whether it's past. Okay? Number 2, when I'm creating, I am also drawing from my recovery, whether it's present or it's something that I've recently had victory over. And number 3 is wholeness, which is what we're striving for as human beings. We have an innate desire, because we are spirit first, born of the Spirit of God. We have an innate longing for heaven on earth. That is why we strive for better. That is why we want more in our life. And not necessarily materialistically or anything like that, but more of what makes us feel good and makes us feel whole. Because we were created for that. So I want to encourage you to remember that we are always in these 3 stages of our life, and to draw from them at all times. I want to go back to this because, number 1, it's something that I know that some artists in our collective have vocalized as a struggle, and that is that what does it mean to be an accomplished artist? There's so many factors actually to this, because but it starts, well, I'm going to get into that, but it starts with having a clear perspective on what it means to be successful as an artist. If your idea of success is becoming well known, that robs you of the joy of the process of your creativity. In fact, I would say becoming a well-known artist is actually, number 1, well-known to who? Right. But it's a byproduct of the true success. Because if you can be okay with and not just okay, but if you can be joyful with the fact that you are creating, number one, because you know that's why you're here. That's already success, because you know why you're here. I'm here to do this, and I'm doing it, and that's success. And nobody else has to know for you to be successful at what you do, for you to be successful. We have been mistaught, I will say, as artists, and honestly, it doesn't matter which medium of art. I will say notably music, because music tends to be a little more famous, I guess, in the regard that it is, in terms of artists, you know, music is what we are constantly fed through media. But we have been mistaught. This is what I'm getting at, is that we have been mistaught about what does it mean to be an accomplished artist, or the term starving artist. I remember being taught that being an artist is it's almost like, why? Because you're not going to make money doing it, or only a few get to be chosen to be successful. All of that is misteaching about being an artist. So my encouragement is, you know why you're here and you're doing it, that's your success. The people that you're impacting, whether it's through Instagram or YouTube or any other links and resources out there, those are your beneficiaries. I've taught this already, but those are the people that you are impacting, and some of them you may never even meet or know. But rest in that truth that you are already successful in what you're doing, especially if you are doing what you know you're here to do as an artist. Okay? So, bringing this all together, that is important from the get-go, because if I think I'm only as successful as my followers, or I'm only as successful as how many people know about my work, then that is robbing you of continuing to do your work. It's stealing your joy, it's stealing your peace, and that is affecting how you feel, which is affecting your decisions and how you are creating and what you are putting out. Okay? Now, I mean, I can get into so much right now, because, and some of which I already have, because I have taught on the importance of, number one, being authentic with your natural creative flow and honoring that, and making sure that you honor that, because that's the starting point. And to also embrace, again, going back to these three main stages, embrace all of it. I'm thinking back to the workshop that I did, but your finished product of anything you create is only as successful as your authenticity in putting it together. This is why, and I'm going to go into this because this is where I feel led. This is why a lot of times we might feel like, and I'm going to use writing as an example because I'm a writer. Okay, so for example, I have about 50 poems that over the last couple of years that I wrote, three years or so, that I wrote and that are ready to be compiled to put into a book of poetry. Now, I can choose from these 50 poems what I want to make into my book. And I can choose them based on a number of things. I can choose them based on the title, the content, the theme, how vulnerable I was when I wrote each one. Because a lot of these actually are very candid and very just raw. That's how I write in general. When I write poetry, I don't edit my poetry. I write whatever I wrote because I'm a feeler. That's how I felt, that's how I wrote it, and that's my finished product. I don't go back and edit, which is interesting because I am an editor. I have editorial knowledge. But when it comes to my poetry, I let it be. Because that, to me, as an artist, that's my work. And that's my most authentic work. However, if I were to overthink and overanalyze my poetry, for example, I may never finish a poem, or I may never get it into publication because I will constantly be trying to get it to a place of perfection that doesn't exist. And this is my encouragement, is that there is a space of, this is my work just as it is, and I'm done with it, and I'm ready to release it. And then there's a space, like I shared in the workshop, of the structure around it. So for you, this whole process begins with understanding the condition of my soul. Okay? Going back to this, when I wrote a lot of this poetry, and in general for me, actually, when it comes to writing, specifically poetry, because that is the only writing that I won't edit. Books, obviously, I edit. Even my prose writing, I will edit that. But when it comes to and this is probably where I'm going into this, but for me, when I write, specifically, I call them recovery poems. It is because it's that stage of my life that I'm releasing what's going on with me. For you, it's different, based on your medium, based on how you naturally flow as an artist. But what you want to remember is to bring all of it into your work. Okay? The brokenness, the recovery, and the hope for wholeness and healing. Okay, going back to these 3 areas that you struggle with, which I introduced you to at the start of the video. What is your soul condition with these 3 struggles? In other words, if you were to identify these 3 stages that I shared, brokenness, recovery, wholeness, where are you in these 3 areas? And based on what I've shared about the process of the soul and how it functions, how can you implement this understanding that how I think affects how I feel affects my decisions? And I know this is a lot, but we're putting all of this together. And finally, how can I authentically create from these areas authentically and truthfully, without unabashedly. Okay? Again, your most authentic work is going to come from the liberation of allowing your soul to function in its natural rhythm, as well as your natural creative flow and embracing wherever you are. I'm going to address this as well because this is another area that for some of us it's very prevalent because we're going through it right now. And for others, not so much. But I need to address it because it's important to put all of the pieces where they go, if you will. We all have default coping mechanisms to what we struggle with. Okay? And going back to what I shared at the very beginning, some of us it's physical, some of us battle mentally, some of us battle emotionally, and of course the root of it is spiritually. But I want to encourage those of us who are in a physical battle of default unhealthy coping mechanisms. And I'm going to keep it there because I really feel like that's going to hit home. Your physical battle, okay, again, going back to the core of self, we are spirit, soul, and body. And in that order, both forwards and backwards is how we get to our healing. My spiritual condition is the root of my soul condition, which is the root of my physical condition. If I'm struggling with something physical, okay, and I'm going to write it down because it'll help to see it, at least it helps me. Okay, spirit, soul, and body. If I'm struggling with a physical issue, which is body, I need to go to my soul to figure out what's going on here. Because my physical coping is a reflection of something hurting in my soul. And something hurting my soul is a reflection of something hurting in my spirit. Okay? So again, the domino effect of self. Now, all of it has remedy, all of it has hope, and all of it has rescue. But there are some things that, unless we know the connection, it seems like there's no hope for this in my life. So I'm here to encourage. As artists, some of it is environmental because I would say, namely and specifically, bands and musicians, because of the environment that we tend to work in, we can learn to cope in ways that are unhealthy for us physically, that actually become habits and become lifestyles that further takes us away from the healing and recovery. So if you are there, number one, I want to encourage you that coming back to this soul realm of self is your escape hatch. Okay? If you're interested in learning more about this, you guys know I do mentoring and coaching, and you are free to reach out to me. And if you're wrestling with the soul, then we need an anchor, and that is to have a strong spirit. Okay? So, number 3 is the soul of an artist. 7 soul strengthening pillars to building your dream life as an artist. We are almost halfway there. I hope this has blessed you and helped you. It's blessed me and helped me, and I hope y'all are doing well. I miss y'all. I'll be back with number 4 sometime, probably next month at this rate. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you feel. And I look forward to talking to y'all very soon. Okay? Love you. Bye.